Good afternoon and welcome to my hobby bench. Once again, as most of you regular viewers and subscribers have noticed, the last few videos I posted have been about engines again. So this one is no different. This one is titled Odds and Ends Engine Video, just because I think I mentioned several videos ago that I had a handful, at least a handful of engines that were in disassembled states I was waiting on parts for, and I've just been trying to find time to put some of them together. So I just thought I'd bring you up to speed on two of the engines that I'm still in the middle of working on. Now, I have to admit that I have not been filming the reassembly of these, and for some I guess I apologize for that, but others I just is like, sometimes I just want to just sit and concentrate on just playing with engines and enjoying it. So that's why I'm kind of filming this, is to kind of show you the steps I'm at with some of these engines, and one of them is not one that I don't think that I've really shown before yet either. So on the table, I've got two bins here. I'm going to put this one off to the side first, and we'll talk about what's in this bin. Now this bin is something very familiar to you, and Floyd, this will be an interesting one for you, because this one is regarding the Super Tiger S75 crash victim. Now, this whole thing started with Florida Floyd sending me a crashed Super Tiger S75 engine, and I think many of you recall that. Well, he sent it to me with the assumption that I was hopefully just going to be able to use it for parts, make a video showing, the crash damage, etc. Well, that kind of morphed into something completely different. A commenter on that video turned me on to a $39 engine on eBay, a Super Tiger S75, and I was like, $39? What the heck? It looks like a pretty complete engine, except it didn't have an exhaust. So I was like, well, let's just do that and see, and that'll be my parts engine. Well, as it turned out, that engine was actually pretty good. There's probably, I'm trying to utilize the parts from both of those engines, but for the most part, this is a totally a different, it's that engine. In fact, let me grab the bag here, because there were some things I really have thought was interesting that I wanted to talk about. So I got two S75 engines, both of them from Italy, but they're different in age and design. So the first thing, let me just show you, is that I did come up with an exhaust. I found an exhaust for this thing, brand new. I think I paid $16 for it. The only caveat with this exhaust in the adapter, I got the adapter also, was that it had no hardware. So, not a big deal. I mean, it didn't even have the pressure nipple on here. So, luckily I found one from an old engine, and I just fitted this one on here today. I had to drill it and tap it, and it wasn't the right size, so I had to do all that. Yesterday I went to the hobby store, found all the right metric hardware for this, to a pinch screw to hold this thing onto the adapter, so that's done. I took the crankcase in there with me. Let me zoom in here a bit more. Took the crankcase in there with me to get screws for this that would go, through the adapter. And turns out this is the strangest thing, really. It says made in Italy, and everything on this is metric, except for these two holes here. So I was like, okay, these are like, I think they're number 632 screws. So I had to find some that were, whatever. So I did that. So here's the interesting thing. I took this crankshaft or crankcase with me, but the crankcase that Florida Floyd sent me, do you see a difference here? Let me show you it this way. Maybe you'll be able to see the difference a little bit better there. This one, they're both made in Italy. This is the one that had the more modern carb on it. This one had the older carb, but this one has got the attachment bolts go all the way through. This one, they're tapped just to go in this way. There's no hole here. So I was like, when I went to the hardware store, yesterday I was like, well, I have to find long screws that will go all the way through, because I had this in my mind, because I'd seen that, and most Super Tiger engines I was familiar with had this type of bolt through type of deal going on. Well, then when I pull this out of the back of the hardware store, I'm like, that's interesting. It's not a bolt through thing. So now this is going to make life much easier, because now I don't have to find as long a screw. But I had to figure out, well, what's the size, the thread size? And I had screws that came with the Florida Floyd engine. They were kind of, messed up. And it turned out they were 632s. So anyway, so I got that. I don't have a paper towel. Something to wipe my hands off here real quick. So that's that. I think I was saying that, you know, that old bearing felt fine. I was just going to use it. It felt fine. It seemed good. And it wasn't. I put it in, put the new bearing in the front of this thing. This is the front housing from the replacement parts engine. And I was turning it and I was like, this just isn't right. Just doesn't feel right. So I contacted my friend Brant on eBay, and he doesn't carry this bearing. This is not the same bearing that goes in other Super Tiger engines, because I do have bearings from Kirk that he sent me for a G90. Well, these are not the same bearings at all. This is a strange Y17 or Y15 bearing. Brant didn't carry it, so I had no choice but to get it from Boca, which meant it was a $17 bearing, which is now in here and you can't see it. So now I've got all fresh bearings in here, because I was thinking, you know, I'm putting, so I've got, like, let's see here, this was $40 plus shipping for this engine, another, say, 20 here, another 20 here, so we're like 40, we're at to $80 for this engine so far. Plus I bought these new gaskets for the S75 engine. And I think these were, it says $7.99. So I'm like at $88 invested in this thing for an engine that was hopefully just gonna, you know, so. Kim?